For the first time in over 3 years, direct peace talks between Ukraine and Russia began on Friday in Istanbul, raising cautious hopes of ending Europe's deadliest war since the Second World War. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan says it is essential to secure a ceasefire as soon as possible. Let's listen in to his opening statement.
Kıymetli misafirler, savaş can almaya devam ederken ateşkesin bir an evvel hayata geçirilmesi kritik önem taşımaktadır. Ateşkesin müzakerelerle eş zamanlı olarak sağlanması yönünde de önümüzde bir fırsat bulunmaktadır. Takdir edersiniz ki gelinen aşamada iki yol bulunmaktadır. Yollardan biri bizi barışa götürecek bir süreci başlatacak. Diğeri ise daha fazla yıkıma ve can kaybına yol açacaktır.
While Ukraine has called for an unconditional ceasefire as fighting continues to devastate cities and displace millions, Russia, however, insists on addressing what it calls the root causes of the war, suggesting little change from its hardline demands since negotiations collapsed in 2022. The talks held in Istanbul's historic Donbass Palace were opened by Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan. Footage showed Russian and Ukrainian delegates sitting face to face with Turkish, Russian and Ukrainian flags in the backdrop. Meanwhile, EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen vows Europe will increase the pressure until Russian President Vladimir Putin is ready for peace. Let's listen in to what she said.
President Zelensky was ready to meet, but President Putin never showed up. And this shows his true belief, so we will increase the pressure. We're working on a new package of sanctions that include sanctions against Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, but also listing more vessels in the shadow fleet and lowering the oil price cap, and finally more financial sanctions on the Russian financial sector, because we want peace and we have to increase the pressure till President Putin is ready.
Well, notably absent is Russian President Vladimir Putin, who declined to attend and instead sent former Culture Minister Vladimir Medinsky. Ukrainian President Zelensky criticised the move, calling it a sign that Moscow is not serious about peace. Zelensky as well was set to take part in those meetings, but decided not to after Putin's announcement. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has pushed both sides to engage. His envoys, alongside British, French and German security advisors, met with Ukraine's delegation ahead of the talks. Well, joining us to discuss the latest developments is Ruslan Bortnik, a director of Ukrainian Institute of Politics, who's joining us from Kyiv. Ruslan, there is a lot going on, so we will try to cover as much of it as possible. We know that talks have now ended between Russian and Ukrainian diplomats. We'll come into some of the comments that we've had off the back of that meeting. But let's first talk about the significance of Russian and Ukrainian diplomats speaking face to face for the first time in over 3 years.
I think it's a great achievement in this situation because it works of Donald Trump administration, very important works because this new United States administration was able to change general political narrative about this war from the war till the end, till the victory, to the peace dialogue, to the direct dialogue between the sides. So this direct dialogue between the sides is extremely important because it makes the peace close and it makes the level of hostilities, level of hatredness between the sides low. But I think we are still far away from the agreement, from a peaceful agreement, because the existential positions of the sides are still far away from each other, and no one is ready to go to the significant concessions toward each other.
Yes, absolutely, Ruslan. Some sources have revealed, a Ukrainian source that is, that demands were set that were, accordingly to them, unrealistic and go far beyond anything ever discussed. Given the fact that this isn't heads of state at the meeting and instead is diplomats of differing seniority, how significant are these meetings in the wider scope of getting a permanent ceasefire, an unconditional ceasefire agreed?
I think we have a situation of continuation of the fight but by another methods, by diplomatic methods. Because due last weeks, both sides were trying to compete each other in topics of diplomacy. Russia suggested a 3-day ceasefire. Ukraine answered for idea with 30 days ceasefire. Then Russia made suggestions to make a direct meeting in Istanbul because Russia understood that it is a very weak point for Ukraine because we have a special presidential order from 2022 which prohibited to have a dialogue with Putin. Then Ukrainian president, maybe Ukrainian side weren't going to Istanbul at all, but United States President Donald Trump made his message in Truth Social again that Ukraine has immediately go to Istanbul. Then Ukraine go to Istanbul by demanding the direct dialogue, public debates between Zelensky and Putin, which Putin declined. And in this situation, these circumstances, Putin sent to Istanbul a very specific low-level delegation, but this delegation is consisted from the persons, especially Medinsky, who is native Ukrainian, but it consisted from the persons who took part in the previous Istanbul negotiation between Ukraine and Russia in 2022. So we have situation of this diplomatic competition between the sides. And it looks for me, today we had some kind of consultation between the sides when Ukraine and Russia stated their own positions, but no one is ready to prepare something common. No one is ready to prepare something convergence between them.
Yes, absolutely, Ruslan. Of course, a meeting with European leaders was going on simultaneously to these talks in Turkey. Volodymyr Zelensky speaking in front of the European leaders and, of course, the world's media. I just want to point out a couple of statements that he's made and then get your opinions on them. Zelensky saying that Russia has sent almost the same people that it sent in 2022. It shows that Russia has not changed its basic approach. They make many statements, many threats that solve nothing. They're doing everything they can to turn this Istanbul meeting into a staged and empty process. He then went on to say this week we had a real chance to take important steps towards ending the war. If only Putin had not been afraid to come to Turkey. I was in Ankara, and thanks to the participation and hosting us, President Erdogan and I were ready to speak directly with Putin. We've seen previously European leaders, Zelensky and the US administration at points almost put the ball back into Vladimir Putin's court. Do you think these comments do the same thing, or is this a call out to other world leaders to put more pressure on the Russians?
I think it's Ukrainian strategy to have a straight debate between Zelensky and Putin, because Zelensky is absolutely sure that he will win these debates. And even Trump has troubles with Zelensky in Oval Room. We remember it. Zelensky is very bright, very passionate public leader with very good experience of public statements and so on. And nowadays, main Ukrainian goal is not achieving the agreement with Russia. We need to understand. Ukrainian main goal is saving the Western support. Is saving the cooperation with European Union and United States. And so Ukraine now is doing everything which putting Russia in a bad position and which helping Ukraine to look like a main peace defender and not a trouble in peace process.
Yes, absolutely, Ruslan. We are running out of time, but very briefly, I do want to talk about the influence of other world leaders in these discussions. Of course, Turkey brokering these peace talks that have taken place today. We've, of course, seen a lot of intervention from the United States and also European leaders. In order to push this forward, What is needed? Is it as simple as Donald Trump has put, saying that Vladimir Putin wasn't there because I wasn't there? Does this need Donald Trump to move forward?
I think the main consequences from this meeting could be only the next meeting, the appointment for the next meeting. And the main result of this dialogue of the last days, it will be the straight dialogue between Putin and Trump. Because Trump officially recognized that without Trump, without the United States administration, this conflict cannot be resolved. So we are waiting for the straight dialogue between Putin and Trump in the next week.
Ruslan Bortnik, thank you ever so much for joining us. Of course, there are several developments that will continue to come throughout the day, and we will be across all of those. We move on now, and India has once again raised alarm over Pakistan